An unanswered question at the intersection of neuroscience, metabolism, and pharmacology. Number 1677, the 9th of June 2026. Gerald C. EclaireMD Foundation. Preface. This paper began with an observation rather than a hypothesis, while comparing 1 year of continuous glucose monitoring CGM data before my hemorrhagic pontine stroke on June 21, 2025. With approximately 1 year afterward, I noticed a persistent and reproducible change in my glucose profile. The annual average glucose increased from 103 mg DL to 114 mg DL, about 11% higher. The daily peak increased from 115 mg DL to 133 mg DL, about 16% higher. More importantly, the glucose curve became broader and remained elevated for a longer period each day. These findings are based on approximately 70,000 CGM measurements collected before and after the stroke within an 8.5-year database of nearly 300 data points using the same measurement methodology. The observation appears real and reproducible. The observation, the post-stroke glucose waveform shifted upward, widened, and developed a longer plateau. As a result, both the height and duration of glucose exposure increased, producing a larger overall glucose-associated energy load that could have a negative impact on my overall health. From an engineering viewpoint, the waveform itself changed rather than simply moving to a slightly higher average value. The observation is clear, but the explanation is not. Several possibilities immediately come to mind, including neuroplasticity, brain self-repairing process, increased energy demand during brain recovery, reduced physical activity, medication effects, altered metabolism, or interactions among these factors. However, my data cannot distinguish among these possibilities. At present, any explanation would remain speculative. My research philosophy, my academic background is in mathematics, physics, engineering, computer science, and AI rather than traditional clinical medicine. As a result, I naturally trust measurements before interpretations. I prefer to collect quantitative data, identify reproducible patterns, and only then search for explanations. If the data support a conclusion, I accept it. If the data are insufficient, I prefer to leave the question unanswered rather than force an explanation. For me, observation comes first and interpretation comes later. Why this matters? This finding appears to sit at the intersection of neuroscience, metabolism, pharmacology, and systems science. The glucose increase occurred despite daily metformin and diabetes medication therapy and persisted for nearly 1 year after the stroke. Whether the underlying mechanism involves brain recovery, metabolic adaptation, medication effects between metformin and Keppra seizure medication, or an entirely different process remains unknown. I have searched and reviewed thousands of medical publications but have not found a comparable longitudinal observation combining continuous pre-stroke and post-stroke glucose measurements from the same individual similar to this way. Conclusion: this paper does not present a new theory. It documents a new question. The data demonstrate that after my stroke, the glucose profile became higher, broader, and more prolonged. The pattern is supported by quantitative measurements, but its mechanism remains unexplained. Sometimes scientific progress begins not with an answer but with a carefully documented observation. The data are real. The question is real. The explanation remains open. For me, that is a legitimate scientific position. This content is provided for educational reference only and does not constitute medical advice. No doctor-patient relationship is created. You may share this summary freely, but it must not be altered, edited, or republished as your own. All intellectual property rights and copyrights for this article and its related materials belong to the author, Gerald C.